What began in June 2024 as a space to amplify autistic and neurodivergent voices has grown into something far bigger. A platform for raw, honest conversations about neurodivergence, disability, burnout, inclusion, mental health, and how our identities shape the way we move through the world. From the start, our mission has been clear: to go beyond the headlines, beyond stereotypes, and explore the real lived experiences that often go unheard. Over the past year, we've spoken with parents, professionals, educators, advocates, and everyday people, all united by a commitment to building a more inclusive and accessible world. But what's mattered most is the community. Those of you who listen, share, and remind us, finally, someone gets it. Thank you for being here. This is just the beginning.
Looking for authentic conversations that go beneath the surface? Tune in now to the Deep Dive podcast. Visit us at www.deepdiveau.net. That's deepdiveau.net. And follow us across your favorite platforms: YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Facebook. Just search at the Deep Dive AU. Join us as we dive deep into stories of neurodivergence, lived experience, and creating a more inclusive world. The Deep Dive podcast. Conversations that matter. Stories that connect.
This is the Deep Dive podcast. And here is your host, Michael Coles.
Giarne Ashby is a multiple neurodivergent mum, wife, and OT with her own practice in Queensland. She is the author and illustrator of the Neurodiversity Affirmation Cards and regularly uploads resources to her website. She has a special interest in Neuro-Affirming, OT, and supporting neurodivergent adults. A self-confessed craft addict, artist, and regular adventure of side quests, she's also a parent of a neurodivergent little person and shares about the case of trying to navigate exploring her own AuDHD identity while supporting a neurodivergent child. Giarne Ashby, welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks, Michael.
So what inspired you to create the Neurodivergent Affirmation Cards, and how can these cards support neurodivergent individuals?
I'll be honest, I made them for me. I think I was actually doing some training from Monique Mitchelson. I think that's her last name. She's another AuDHDer and psychologist who does a lot of training around how to be neuro-affirming. And I think she mentioned Sunny Jane Wise having an Instagram carousel for some affirmations, and it just lit up something in my little AuDHD brain. And I jotted down a couple at the time, and then a couple of weeks later, after I got off a call with a client, I hit a flow state with it, and I wrote them down, not just for me, but for the people I work with. And in terms of like what they can do and how they work for people, I guess I was looking for how to build that positive identity that has spent so long being told that it wasn't enough and that we needed to do more, and that certain behaviors were the only acceptable things. So it was really about sort of proudly accepting and supporting your neurotype in all its neuro-sparkly glory, and not writing just like fluffy little affirmations, but to challenge the foundational like ableist and neuronormative ideas and values that are so much a part of society. Yeah, just so much of the messages that we've been sent over time, and trying to I guess provide a alternative.
Okay, so how are they different to general affirmation cards, and was there a gap that you identified that led you to develop these specific cards?
Yeah, they are different. They quite literally are about reflecting the neurodivergent experience. So from being hyper-focused to late all the time, which is me. I swear my middle name is Chaos. And like being consistent in the inconsistent, needing routine or needing new and novel and exciting. The cards use these lived experiences with a combination of like a dialectic and radical self-acceptance and positive psychology. So they're not just the beautiful little heartwarming ones you see in the pharmacy. They're really customized to the neurodivergent community. And I think especially because there's so much deep shame for a lot of us around the brains that we have, and that it's just how we're wired. But there's been so many of those messages of not quite fitting and being the weirdo. My daughter is a Gestalt language processor, and we've been obsessed with Lilo and Stitch at the moment. And I think there's a scene in that where she one of the kids call the other a weirdo, and it just it triggers me every time. And so of course my daughter's worked that out, and now she's calling everyone a weirdo and she doesn't like what's happening. And I guess it was just so reminiscent of my schooling experience, and I'm sure many other people in the ND community. And the gap I saw was something to counteract the ableist and neuronormative messages. And just like Sunny and Monique were identifying as well, we need other messages. I don't know about you, but I've never really connected with the general affirmation cards. They didn't really connect to my lived experience. Just breathe. Okay, sure, I was already doing that.
And don't forget, we're beautifully weird, and we accept every type of weirdness and stuff like that in our community. So I think that's what's great about the Deep Dive podcast. So how do you recommend families and professionals integrate these cards into their daily routines for maximum impact?
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways we can use them. I know in our office, we pick a card for each other sometimes, and what's the message we need to hear today. I have a client who uses them as tarot cards and pulls from the deck each day to see what it is that they need to hear. One of the families I work with, a 10-year-old nicked the deck of cards and they write an affirmation into their journal each week. As a clinician, I use them to spark conversation. So sometimes it's around the conversations on shame and self-compassion, and trying to invite the compassion for yourself, because the way you are is not wrong. It's beautiful and wonderful and just right for you. And so often that's not what we have been led to believe about ourselves. And other times it's around dismantling those ableist beliefs that so many of us don't realize that we even have, that internalized ableism. So looking at a card and discussing, do we agree? Do we disagree? Does the context matter for this? Is it about the safety of the person? And just, having those conversations to unpack what is it that that the right way to be is for you, not necessarily what everybody else expects.
Okay, so can you share some specific examples of affirmations from the cards and explain the reasoning behind them?
Yeah, so I guess just leading on from that conversation, I grabbed a couple of them that I love. I'm a deeply feeling human, and that doesn't make me wrong. So again, I have a lot of clients who've been told that they're too sensitive. We have nervous systems that are more sensitive. That makes us really deeply feeling people, and that's allowed. And it's also okay to not identify with that. But that was that card for that reason. I know a lot of my clients who identify as AuDHD find it really hard to finish tasks, myself included. And so this one was, not finishing something doesn't reflect whether I'm successful or not. I may need more supports, or it wasn't right for me right now. So it could be something we come back to. It's okay to ask for my needs to be met. My voice and my needs matter. Again, just working on trying to raise your own voice to advocate for yourself, because really that's self-advocacy is the goal here. Is if we can accept who we are, then we're more likely to be able to advocate for what our needs are. Yeah.
Okay. So what are the ranges have you found to get most benefits out of these cards, and how do you adapt their use?
Yeah, it's actually surprised me, to be honest, because I kind of wrote them with adult clients in mind, because I I'm an adult, apparently, and I work primarily with adult clients. But I've discovered that they're actually more useful than even I realized across different ages. So I've had clinicians purchase them for their pediatric caseloads and using them with both parents and kids. And I've had quite a few people identify them as really appropriate for their teens who are in that acceptance and discovery journey like the rest of us. So yeah, I found it, I guess, genuinely surprising how much applicable across ages it is. And I like to talk more about what each person needs rather than specific ages, I guess, because, you know, I've got resources out there that have been designed for kids that are amazing with my adults. M. Hammond's NeuroWild, her double empathy graphic, I use with everybody. So I sort of feel like it's meeting the person with where they are and what they need to learn and discussing what each word means. So some people we might have a discussion around what does needs mean? And then other people we might be having a more philosophical or political debate about whatever it is that card sparked for them, and opening up the dialogue at any age. So we can all afford a little more kindness and self-compassion when we're operating in a world that wasn't designed for us.
Okay, so what kind of considerations did you make or changes to allow for accessibility and inclusion during the process of putting together these cards?
Yeah, I really loved this question, Michael, because you got me thinking when you were asking about in our back and forth around questions around like feedback from the neurodivergent community, and how it is that not only did I think about at the time, but how I would make them more inclusive in the future. So I absolutely looked at the key areas that I was hearing come from clients, and I trialed them with my client base before moving to print the decks. In fact, there were 2 cards that were inspired by one of the clients I was working with at the time. They kind of co-designed them in their words. It was just so beautiful. And I wanted to include graphics for each card, but I was a little bit too impatient to get them off to the printer. So I used a combination of different graphics that were inspired by the cards to give 3 different back covers to the cards with different inspiration taken. So this one's got, you know, my brain has too many tabs open. Oops, I forgot to drink water again. I've got a couple that represented autistic joy or freedom to feel emotions and whatever that looked like. So I included some of the graphics on those to help with understanding, but it's really what it means to each person. And I wanted them to be available for different price brackets. So I made sure we had a digital download for people who might not be able to purchase the cards themselves or might not have access to a printer. I have one beautiful person who reached out and said that they actually set it as their phone background, one of their favorite cards, every time they go to community mental health. I think the one that talks about their needs not being a burden and that they're allowed to ask for help. They said it every time they've got to go engage as that reminder that they're allowed to have needs. So,
Okay,
I think if I was going to do it different in the future, I would probably love the idea of increasing the deck and including more suggestions from the community and having a box that was probably a little bit easier to design, open for people who might have fine motor challenges. But these are the things you learn in the process, I guess. So.
Okay. So do you have a vision for expanding on what you offer to support the neurodivergent community? Will you be seeing future decks focusing on different themes like self-esteem, coping strategies, or social skills?
Oh, it is my special interest to create for our community. I have so many ideas and never enough time. So I'd love to add more to both our education library. I've got a interoception course that I've run before, but I'm looking at doing that again later in the year. And I'm currently in beta testing an interoception program with a journal. That's really exciting. But I do have some more decks in the works. I don't know about whether or not having something specific for self-esteem and coping skills, but I did have a Hack Your Brain cards that I've been developing actually since before the affirmation cards, looking at quick fire executive function strategies and regulation strategies. So you have to keep an eye out for those. They'll be coming up.
Okay, so you've talked a lot about being neuro-affirming and neurocompassionate. For listeners who want to learn more about neurodiversity affirming practices, what resources do you recommend they start with?
Yeah, there's so many incredible lived experience educators out there. I just got back from the Yellow Ladybugs conference, and pretty much their entire lineup is like gold standard. So I guess the main consideration would be wherever we're learning from, or people, the voices that we're listening to, that they either have lived experience or center things on lived experience. I know, we're here talking about neuro-affirming and neurodiversity affirmations, and we're talking about our community. So it's very much a nothing about us without us. And please, 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 if you're going out there to look at ways to be more neuro-affirming in workplaces or as clinicians or parents, look to people who aren't just teaching it, they're living it, and be ready to challenge what it is that you think you know.
Okay, so where can our listeners find your neurodivergent affirmation cards and connect with you online?
Where to find them? On our website, so ashbytherapyservices.com.au. The link's there in the shop, and they can follow me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I am a little bit less consistent on LinkedIn, and I've recently jumped over to TikTok. So pretty much everywhere. Yeah, and I'd love to connect with more people there.
Okay, so if somebody listening is just beginning to understand their neurodivergence, what would you want them to know first?
There's no one right way to be. There's only the right way for you. The world teaches us that that there is a right way to be, but it actually needs brains of all types. And while society and research studies and our culture value some things over others, that doesn't make it true or more valuable. Neurodiversity is what makes you you. Whether your brain is more like mine or more like someone else's, no two are the same. And we need the uniqueness that your brain has to offer.
Okay, and the last question that we'd like to ask everybody here on the Deep Dive podcast, and it's going to be worded a little bit differently today. So what's one free tip or strategy in 30 seconds or less that you can share with our listeners today that they can implement immediately to create a more neurodiversity affirming environment?
Brené Brown is a shame researcher, and she talks about believing, and I totally believe this too, that people are inherently good, capable of change, and doing the best that they can. And this perspective opens up the opportunity for curiosity. And when we're curious, we can be more accommodating to the ways that others might need in order to thrive. So if you can do one thing today, it would be to get curious, believe in people and that they're doing their best, and be willing to change.
Okay, and on that note, Giarne Ashby, thank you very much for being part of the Deep Dive podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
You can connect with Giarne at ashbytherapyservices.com.au or on Instagram at Giarne Ashby.